So we are continuing to look at science, and we've begun to see that science is founded on the Christian truths that the physical world is real, reliable, and rational, and that the human body and the human mind are also real, reliable, and rational, and that the world and the human mind are so designed for one another that these tiny creatures on planet Earth can genuinely come to understand the mind of the living God in his creation. Now, it's sometimes claimed that the scientific method is to simply collect data and then formulate theories based on the data. Almost as if theories of the universe would just emerge from the data. Like the theories of the universe are delivered by the physical world if we only collect enough data. And of course that isn't true. When a scientist collects data, they have already formulated a theory, an area of interest, a proposal to investigate. The data is collected according to a theory, according to beliefs, proposals, ideas. So the data is collected according to existing beliefs or something that you think, now maybe this is true. I'm going to collect data to find out if it's true or to what extent it's true. And even the method for the collection of the data is based on beliefs, ideas, proposals that have been formulated by the scientist. So the theory and the method are used to probe and analyze the universe, the world. It's not that data is simply collected in a neutral way, because there's an infinite amount of data, even as I'm sat at the table that I'm at now. I'm just noticing how my eye alights on some things, but not other things. Some things just are not interesting to me. There's a tablecloth on the table, and I've hardly noticed the different patterns on it. And I now, having thought that, now I begin to look more closely at the patterns, and I see colours and shades that I hadn't really noticed before. But in doing that, I am now not paying attention to, there's a box with different pictures on the side, and I've not paid attention to that because I was paying attention to something else. See, there's an infinite amount of data available, but what we do in the scientific method is select a particular range of data and then collect it according to a particular method, because we have a belief, a theory, a proposal, something that we wish to use to examine the world and probe the world. So the beliefs, you can't have a view of the universe that isn't based on beliefs and proposals and ideas. The universe itself doesn't give the theories, give to us. We think them, we have them. So I think somebody put it like this, that you could, I suppose, have a computer with a camera or whatever, different data gathering equipment, and it could just collect data for 1,000 years, vast amounts of data. But it would never come up with a theory, a synthesis, an analysis in and of itself. It has to have a proposal, a method, a set of beliefs about the universe in order to organize that data to get meaning and truth, to see how to organize it in such a way that an image of the universe can be formed mentally. And that concept of the imagination, we might come to that later, that it's the crucial ability of the human heart and mind. Imagination is the most important human faculty for pursuing science. The ability to say, here's all this data, and to imagine a way in which that could be organized to lead to a rational understanding of the universe, to imagine something and then to test that imagination by trying to collect more data and things according to this imagination that has been formed in our minds. So computers, laboratory equipment, all observational equipment, in and of themselves do not tell us the truth about the universe. All they do, they're tools for the human mind, the human scientist, who is the one who, with imagination and belief and theory, will collect, test, analyze, and so on. Only a human mind, created in the image of God, can try to recapture the thoughts of the Creator. Only a human mind, created in the image of God, can understand the divine logic that holds all things together. Now, we'll do an episode later, and it might take 2 or 3 actually, where we'll really try to examine the background theological beliefs that play a critical role in the formulation of scientific theories. What are the Christian beliefs given through Jesus that enable this process of imagination, testing, theorizing, development? These foundational theological beliefs that are necessary for science itself. We'll perhaps focus more on that in a later collection of episodes. But it's interesting that as the theological foundations of science have been eroded, particularly in the past 40, 50 years, but really intensely in the past 20, as the theological foundations of science have been eroded, so the aspirations of children and education have changed. And I mean, think about how science as an educational subject has suffered. Some people have called it a tragic crisis in the number of young people choosing scientific study from the mid-teenage years, where they begin to choose subjects to focus on, specialize in. The statistic I have here says that less than 10% of students take 3 science subjects when they're making those exam choices in the mid-teenage years. And less than a third of schools in the UK even offer 3 science subjects. The number of students taking only 1 science subject has doubled in recent years. So Science was once something that was considered to be a high aspiration, an exciting possibility for human life. It was like a pure discipline, a calling. I've even heard it used to be almost like a calling, a sacred thing to do. But now it's, as we'll see, associated much less with the pursuit of truth in a high sense, and much more associated with simply mundane aspirations of a career, a way to earn some money, a way to develop technology, to do things that make money, rather than this older vision, which is already almost has almost disappeared. The idea of science as a kind of a high calling almost. Now, why has all this happened? Why is there this lack of interest in the cosmos, the physical world? Why it still exists? There's still a kind of passion for science to a degree, but increasingly it's much more practically orientated to human society, to study engineering in order to make cars or bridges or to solve human problems, rather than or to make medicine. Everything is the goal of understanding for its own sake hardly exists anymore. It's always let's do science in order to improve human life for almost kind of selfish reasons in a way. Selfish in the big scheme of things. To say, you might say, no, it's not. It's to cure disease. That's not selfish. Well, it kind of is, in the sense that it's for the benefit of human beings rather than the pursuit of truth itself or understanding itself. So if science subjects have declined in recent years, what subjects have increased in popularity? Well, it's things to do with the study of human media, film, design, literature, career-oriented studies as well, business, management, sports activities, all of these sorts of things have flourished when as the study of the objective created order has declined. And it's, as someone said, there's a turn from the works of Christ to the works of humanity. So if the heavens and the earth, that's the works of Christ, and to pursue him in the study of the universe, to understand all the wonder of how everything works, and to keep pursuing these questions of understanding, and to not be satisfied with kind of mystery. It's a mystery, that's a miraculous thing, and who can know how that works? And then to go, no, because Christ made these things. He's running the universe, he's holding it all together, and we want to understand him. It's possible to have, there is a logic that holds all things together. Let us pursue that. Well, that's kind of declined in favor of the works of humanity. Now, the Royal Society, which is perhaps the premier science body in the world, was founded largely by the most passionate and committed Christians of the 16th and 17th centuries. They had such a love for the created order and wanted to study it and understand it as an act of worship. to think the thoughts of Christ the Creator as these thoughts are displayed throughout the heavens and the earth. That was seen as a high and lofty vision. It was the energy that made the modern scientific project possible. This tremendous confidence and joy and passion for this rational analysis and pursuit of the rationality of the universe. Christian writers used to speak of scientific work as a sacred task, a task that actually requires prayer and holy dedication as the scientist tries to understand and glory in the ways and works of Christ in all creation. And it's fascinating to see that in these older scientific textbooks and diaries and journals, the way, and even still I've met very eminent scientists who still pray and dedicate themselves and ask for divine assistance as they engage in the scientific labor. And this glorious and inspiring vision of the scientific task has been largely lost, and instead science is actually not only pursued for more mundane reasons, but increasingly science is viewed with skepticism and cynicism. We see that, like, I can remember when I was young, like a teenager, adverts on television could quite often have people in white coats, like lab coats, working in a scientific environment, laboratories, and the idea is that they are testing things, pursuing scientific goals with this kind of sense of that they have a kind of trustworthiness and high calling about them. And adverts would have them because it communicated to people, what you're going to hear in the advert is to be trusted because, look, scientists are involved in what we're doing. But you really hardly get that at all anymore. Because there's a much greater cynicism about science as something that is not disengaged pursuit of something sacred and high and truth for truth's sake, and something that is connected to this Father, Son, and Spirit that made all things and hold them together and infuses all things with glory and logic and wonder. No, it's increasingly, and I find this so sad, that people think, no, scientists work for governments and companies, and they produce results that are, or at least the results that are published are very often controlled by governments and by big organizations, and that the real truth about the world, if there is even such a thing, and increasingly people don't believe that there is like a real objective truth to the universe, and that's crazy. That's crazy to think like that, but increasingly there are people like that. But there is this belief that science is controlled, and you get the science you pay for. That is a line I've often heard people say. You get the science you pay for. So instead of, so with scientists, you need to know who is paying them to know whether to trust their results or how to interpret what they claim, what they're claiming. So it's an amazing, different view of what's going on with science. And this skepticism and cynicism around the scientific project is despite so many attempts at creating a new appreciation of science by governments and institutions, and the idea of let's have propaganda to encourage young people, or girls in particular, into science and technology and maths and so on. So the power of industry and business and corporations to control research, and the infatuation with new technologies, has undermined the theological vision for science and replaced it with something very mundane and something that produces cynicism and a lack of passion. And it's odd that you sometimes, not so much as 20 years ago, but you still occasionally get a kind of belief, an atheist idea that science is against God, and that somehow the pursuit of science would get rid of God, Christianity, or religion as in general. And this used to be said much more, say 20 years ago. Now it is much less said, because the decline of Christian theology has, as some of us said it would, the decline of Christian theology in the Western world anyway, has actually led to the decline of science. So the triumph of Christianity leads to a triumph of science. A decline of Christianity leads to a decline of science. And that the atheist idea that the triumph of science would lead to the decline of Christianity is the exact opposite of reality. Science needs Christian theology. It sits upon this huge foundation of Christ and Christian theology, and particularly the Christian doctrine of creation being tied up with the Lord Jesus Christ. So all these things that we've been thinking about, and many more beside, the symptoms of a crisis in our understanding of science. Western culture has been built upon Christian teaching about the creation. The rise of a systematic study of the creation is possible only in a culture which has adopted the Christian doctrine of creation. And we'll try to explore that as we go on. Science, certainly the modern scientific project, in this sense of an overall passion and project to rationally comprehend and systematize a complete understanding of the entire universe, that has never occurred in pagan cultures, because they see the world as something unreal or illusory or irrational. And all those viewpoints mean that although there is room for limited pursuit of science, it can never lead to that total, systematic, universal pursuit of science that has only occurred on the basis of Christian culture. It's only when the universe is seen as something real and logical and good that careful scientific study of the universe is seen as a possibility only when we see the world as a creation rather than as a random occurrence, only then do we think the world is knowable at all. See, if the world, or the cosmos, is essentially created by an irrational event, and all that we see around us is produced by is essentially random, then there isn't a deep belief that everything makes sense, that there is a rationality, a logic that accounts for it all. It's only when we know that it is a creation created by, and not just a sort of collection of gods who each have their own agenda, but by this one living God who has this eternal logos, and this God who is a community, a family, who contains within himself this unity and diversity, interaction, fellowship. All of that is the only way of accounting for. So when we believe in that God who creates, it enables the kind of scientific project that was so powerful, so successful. Science has prospered only where the biblical vision of reality has been allowed to shape the intellectual life of a culture. And even when that biblical vision is filtered through Islam or Judaism, it still gives rise to at least some possibility of science. It's so strong, the Christian view of reality, that even when it's in a filtered, diluted form, it still has this power. Even if it's lesser, it still has power. So the biblical doctrine of creation states that our context is a creation, a cosmos which makes sense to humans who've been created to understand it. And such a doctrine also states that the creation is not divine, nor is it demonic, but it is to be taken seriously nonetheless. And that point that it is not divine. See, if you believe that the universe itself is divine, you won't experiment on it, because you must step back from that. And you must treat it as something sacred, and you can't experiment on it, not truly, if you believe that the stuff of the universe is itself divine. And it leads to a kind of passive wonder, but not an active investigation. And so sometimes when I've spoken to people who have a kind of more, I'll just loosely call it a New Age perspective on the universe, where they do sort of think of the world as a divine being in some way, if not the entire universe to all be divine. The basic orientation is that humans are to be kind of like caretakers of this divine world, and are to leave it as untouched as possible. And the idea of a kind of passionate, confident, investigative experimentation process is never really at the center of that vision. So when we understand creation, we're saying it's not divine, but neither is it demonic, because that is another problem to say, the world is governed by kind of hidden demonic forces. And so if you see something odd occur, you will say, that is the product of hidden spirits and demons and ghosts and things. Because if you believe that, there isn't, again, nothing to investigate. You cannot investigate what hidden spirits or demons are doing. You just have to go, oh, wow, the world's just crazy, weird, unpredictable, even hostile and dangerous. Better to stay away from it. We cannot understand what's going on, because what's going on is pertains to a hidden realm that is itself chaotic and irrational. So the Christian doctrine of creation is that creation is good. It's very good. It's made by the Father through the Son in the power of the Spirit, with this deep rationality and beauty and order and reliability. But it is not itself, the creation is not itself divine, neither is it demonic, and therefore it can be taken seriously.